sunshine with a high of 89. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. So that was some 1-2 punch at Quantico yesterday with the military brass in attendance. First, Pete Hegseth explaining to all those generals that the Department of Defense culture, that era has now ended, and the Department of War period has begun.
From this moment forward, the only mission of the newly restored Department of War is this: warfighting, preparing for war and preparing to win, unrelenting and uncompromising in that pursuit. Not because we want war, no one here wants war, but it's because we love peace. We love peace for our fellow citizens. They deserve peace, and they rightfully expect us to deliver it.
So that was sort of the foundation that was laid from the secretary. And I mean, as we talked about earlier in the show and a little bit at the end of the show yesterday, I don't think he intended them to be colorful moments, but they're colorful moments nonetheless, talking about sort of the professional, apolitical culture that will be the order of the day in the Department of War, as distinguished from the identitarian culture in the previous administration. But when it was time for Trump to speak, I thought it was interesting that, Hegseth gave sort of the talk about what the corporate culture, if you will, is going to be in the armed services, how things are going to work. And Trump spent a good deal of his remarks talking about enemies domestic as opposed to foreign. Not exclusively, but a good part of it, given the scrambling of National Guardsmen to Washington, D.C. and elsewhere, Portland. And his message to the generals was, at least in part, about the military being used as a quick reaction force.
Last month, I signed an executive order to provide training for a quick reaction force that can help quell civil disturbances. So this is going to be a big thing for the people in this room, because it's the enemy from within, and we have to handle it before it gets out of control. It won't get out of control. Once you get involved at all, they all joke. They say, oh, this is not good. But these service members are following in a great and storied military tradition, from protecting frontier communities to chasing outlaws and bandits in the Wild West. And our history is filled with military heroes who took on all enemies, foreign and domestic. You know that phrase very well. That's what the oath says, foreign and domestic. Well, we also have domestic. George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Grover Cleveland, George Bush, and others all used the armed forces to keep domestic order and peace. Many of our leaders used the military to keep peace. Now they like to say, oh, you're not allowed to use the military. And you know what the people say? The people in those cities where they're being raped and shot and beat up, they say, we love the military. You ever see where they interview the people on the street? I've never seen somebody say they don't, unless they're radical and paid off, because a lot of these insurrectionists are paid by, whether it's Soros or other people, but they're paid by the radical left. So today I want to thank every service member, from general to private, who has bravely helped us secure the nation's capital and make America safe for the American people. It's amazing. The whole world is watching.
For more on this, pleased to be joined by retired Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer. He is the president at Project Sentinel in the London Center for Policy Research. He's also the author of Operation Dark Heart, Spycraft and Special Ops on the Front Lines of Afghanistan and the Path to Victory. Colonel Shaffer, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, good morning. Always great to be with you.
So, tackle what Trump had to say about the military's role in providing quick response forces to quell domestic disturbances, as he was describing.
I think it's more than just that. I think, as I was asked a lot before this meeting last week of what it would be, and basically the summary I gave people was, this is all about getting your mind right as a senior leader in DOD. And as you point out, Pete kind of laid out the mechanics, the policy. Trump put out the strategic objectives. We need to look at the homeland. So when you look at the homeland, you look at the domestic insecurities, the challenges, much of that's coming from the southwest border. So while he didn't say it, the DOD is now refocusing on the southwest border and Latin America. We've seen this in Venezuela. We're going to see more going on regarding Mexico. So it's more about the Western Hemisphere. My friends and I almost described it, and this is available on my X account because we did a whole thing on this. This is a restatement of the Monroe Doctrine. And what was different about Monroe back in the 19th century is that they didn't have all the domestic challenges we have. And don't take this the wrong way, but challenges with big, blue cities like Chicago, just saying, and other cities, which essentially have become combat zones. And I said about 10 years ago that it was safer to be in Kabul in a war zone than in Chicago on a weekend. And it's true. So I think that's where this is all going. It's all going to examine, the Teddy Roosevelt 1906, walk softly, but carry a big stick. It's all about refocusing things closer to home. And I think that's that's much of what I think they were trying to say. I think most of that came through. And I think in many ways, while Pete has said we're going to be the most lethal global force ever, which I do believe, and full disclosure, Pete and I are friends, so I know Pete. I think it's going to move in that direction. I think at the same time, we all recognize from just the last 10 years that we have problems here at home we have to focus on and fix.
Well, yeah. I mean, when he says enemies domestic, I mean, I don't think Monroe Doctrine. I think he's talking about big cities, and he'd mentioned D.C.,
well, he is. Yeah.
where he's already deployed resources, and he has an eye towards deploying more.
Yes.
And thinking about what may be a domestic terrorist network of groups like Antifa. That's what I heard when he was talking about that.
Sure. Well, yes, I don't disagree with you. What I'm saying is much of the instability regarding those cities comes from criminal networks, which human traffic, which move drugs. I mean, the fentanyl issue is something that's traceable all the way back to China. Much of the cartels now, at least in the last administration, I always talked about the fact that the border was not open, controlled by the other side. It was very tightly controlled. So I think that's what I'm saying is that a lot of these inner cities suffer from outside resources which come in to destabilize it. Not arguing about that's a huge threat. But yes, we have other outside factors he wants to address. Root causes, if you will.
But I mean, do you have any concern that the deployment of military resources to deal with domestic unrest in whatever form that takes in places like Chicago and Portland and Memphis and D.C. Dilutes the mission? The focus here from Hegseth is on the stated objectives, and this can be included. But I'm just asking the dilution question. Yeah. Is that a concern?
So part of this is a reframing, and I'll be blunt. We could not challenge China or Russia in any credible way right now for two reasons. First, we have leaders who are still in the ranks, but by the way, they were offered the door yesterday.
Yeah.
By now, Pete Hegseth and company
especially if they want to wear a beard, they were offered the door.
Yeah, exactly. Or high heels, just saying. So they know internally who the leaders were who just kind of went along and had to go along with woke and those who embraced it. Just saying. And I know there's more coming on that. So yesterday was there like, hey, there's the door. If you want to take it, you go. You go, girl. And so that was the good that was their one shot to leave.
Yeah.
So now it's going to get serious. And I know for a fact that they're going to start looking harder at how to get rid of generals to re-harden the military. So you got to go that way. Other thing is technology. We have bled technology and our ability to do war fighting. We've given up that knowledge to our enemies because we actually have been fighting to win in Ukraine. We've been giving all these things. We're about to give them Tomahawk missiles. So it's like, okay, you keep throwing this technology out there and hoping for the best, and you're compromising to the adversaries what our capabilities are. So we got to stop that. We got to start refocusing on how to create a military force that's lethal to our needs with our technology rather than giving away the secrets to other folks. So
well,
things like
well, speaking of that, I mean, the journal opined on this too, the lethality issue, giving the war fighters the tools they need to win. The journal, that includes not running out of long-range anti-ship missiles after mere days of fighting in the Taiwan Strait or flying jets built in the Cold War. This will happen if the U.S. doesn't spend more on defense than Trump's apparent target of 3% of GDP. Trump isn't telling Americans the truth when he claims to have rebuilt the military. Our current trajectory, he risks sending warriors into battle without the ships, submarines, bombers, fighters, drones, or logistics support they need to prevail. What do you say to that?
I agree, believe it or not. So I think President Trump has pushed us, given a big shove in the right direction with a lot of good leadership to do it. With that said, we have been inflicted with bad policy regarding acquisition. And they talked about this too yesterday, about acquisition reform. The F-35 is going to be the program that swallowed the Pentagon. They have so much waste in that program. So what I say, and I used to work this issue, I still kind of do, but not as much as a direct issue I did back during the 2020 campaign. We want an effective defense, not an expensive defense. And so much of what we've done is allowed for what Eisenhower described as a military-industrial congressional complex to rule the budget. So we're going to take a step back. They're going to look at how we acquire things. One of the things the Army created during the last war, during the War on Terror, was something called the Rapid Equipping Force, the REF, down in Fort Belvoir, Virginia. They basically looked at off-the-shelf technology and how can we adapt things we need on the battlefield now rather than waiting 5 years for a program to pick it up. We're going to go back to looking at that and then cutting those programs like the Zumwalt project over in the Navy, the F-35, that we've already started dumping that. We've taken things like Cold War fighters. You mentioned the Cold War fighters. The F-15, we've upgraded it with digitization, made it almost a whole new airframe for like 1/3 the price of an F-35. There's a lot of innovations that we can do and should do, and those have been essentially ignored or simply not within the political context of what the Democrats and other folks wanted to do in the administration, the Biden administration before that Obama. So I think there's a whole reframing going on. And it's going to take some time before we can get back to challenge near peers or peers on the battlefield.
Just going back to Hegseth, how do you think the majority of the brass in attendance reacted to his admonitions against fat, bearded generals in dresses? How is that going to be received, do you think?
Yeah, well, I always talk about the fact that we have bureaucrats with their fat spreading asses sitting in seats in the Pentagon. So that's one of the reasons they brought them all in. It's like, look, we're going to talk to you face to face, and they're going to have an opportunity to give their feedback to the secretary. One of the things I know about Pete, he's going to allow them all to basically, he has an open door policy, which I think is great for leaders. He's going to give them a chance to give them feedback. It's like, okay, what'd you think? And from what I've seen so far, is about 70% of people who attended get it and are on board. There's about 30% which are in different categories. 10% who's basically going to violently work against it. We're probably going to lose about 10% of the workforce that was here yesterday because they don't want to go along. There's going to be another 20%, which is kind of like, well, we don't like this, but we're going to just kind of dig our heels in and wait till the next administration. So
unintended.
Yeah, so I think that's what's going to happen. I think that's how it was received. We'll know more over the next few days. Obviously, it was only 24 hours ago that he delivered the speech.
Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer, retired, president at Project Sentinel and London Center for Policy Research, author of Operation Dark Heart, Spycraft and Special Ops on the Front Lines of Afghanistan and the Path to Victory, the book Operation Dark Heart. Lieutenant Colonel Shaffer, thank you as always. Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
And he joined us on the Turnkey.Pro answer line.
The more you listen, the more you'll know. This is Chicago's Morning Answer. Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Sean Thompson here, and I'm with attorney Bert Hochberg from the law firm of Schiller, Ducanto, and Fleck. We're talking about divorce arbitration. This is not really a new, or is it a new, innovative way to go through divorce?
Arbitration has been around for decades. It's completely legit and available to resolve divorce cases. The litigants and their lawyers sign an arbitration agreement.